Good evening, everybody. How are you? And welcome to this evening's live. I am on here this evening to have a chat to you all about stress as part of Pharmacy 360. One of the key elements in that program that we have launched is how do we manage stress in our lives. So we look at stress, we look at nutrition, we look at movement, we look at sleep, we look at the relationship we have with other people and our environment and actually ourselves as well. But tonight we really wanted to actually focus on stress. It's one of the key topics we get asked about all of the time. What is happening in our bodies whenever we're stressed? How can we combat some of the signs and symptoms? What supplements to take? And I thought tonight I would invite Dr. Daniel Jones on because he's an absolute expert when it comes to physiology, when it comes to inflammation, and when it comes to supplementation in general. So I'm going to ask Daniel to join us and we're going to have a little chat about, as always, you send loads of questions in, so I've bucket loads of those as well. So hopefully Daniel can see this and we should be good to go. There you are, Daniel. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Great.
Tell me you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. I don't know what happened on the March channel. It happened the same for me last week as well. I don't know. It's playing up, definitely. I don't know if it was my phone because there was no sound. And also I could see you accepted, but it just wouldn't work. I don't know. So something Instagram fairies or something. I don't know what. Listen, I haven't a clue. I'm not written old IT and I do panic. So listen, the most important thing is I can share it across to Mars anyway. So we will store down this live. I'm always asked that throughout the live because not everybody can watch the whole thing and people want to dip in and out. So we will store this down afterwards onto the grid for anybody who needs to go put kids to bed or anything like that as well. But Daniel, listen, first of all, thank you very much for your time this evening. I know it's precious and I know you're a busy man. So thanks for coming on and joining me again. I know you had come on and talked about sleep one time and I made the grave mistake of not having some products at that live because I had so many questions afterwards saying, what was he talking about here? What was he talking about? So thank you for sharing some of your hints and tips because I collected some of the bits that you had said that you're going to talk about tonight. So I have them here, anything from my own kitchen cupboard, and I also collected a few things when I was in one of the stores today. So hopefully that does not happen tonight. And hopefully we have everything that you're going to talk about here. So I can show it, because people often ask me. But listen, for anybody who doesn't know you, or hasn't seen you on here on Instagram with me before, could you maybe just tell our followers who you are, what do you do, and what are you passionate about, first of all?
Absolutely. Well, of course, thank you for having me again, Una. It's always a pleasure. I love being a part of these. I love having chats with you and talking about everything health related, especially if it has to do with inflammation. And we're about to get into it because, man, does inflammation have a lot to do with stress and just everything we're experiencing internally and externally. So I'm very excited to be back. I always appreciate the invite. So just to kind of give you a little background about myself, you might not have ever spoken to me or met me, but you might have had something that I've made. I'm very proud I've made a number of health supplements. I'm very passionate about physiology and about nutrition, and particularly how it all relates and comes back down to the root of the cause of most of the issues that we suffer, which is really down to inflammation and how inflammation can go awry in our system. So I have a bachelor's in biology and chemistry. I became always really passionate about science. I kind of had health complications when I was younger, which really drove me to have an even more passionate interest about what was going on in my body, how to take care of myself, and how to feel my best, which even though I'm getting older, I just continually feel better. And it's all about understanding our physiology. And after that, I went into my doctorate. But actually, before my doctorate, I actually spent a couple years in pharmaceutical research. And I think that really drives a lot of my interest in nutrition and food and research, because I don't think so many people realize how much pharmaceutical research is actually pushed along by our understanding of nutritional stimulus and mechanisms. So that really just kind of opened the box for me and got me really, really interested in physiology and nutrition. And after doing my doctorate and working in a postdoc in inflammation and metabolism and how that relates to different disease progressions, I started kind of getting into the nutrition industry because I really wholeheartedly love the nutrition industry. I think that a lot of things and products have fallen down that don't really kind of, again, get to that core issue of that problem and address, what's really going wrong. So many things are symptom related, and, we can treat the symptom, but what we really want to do is treat the root cause of that issue.
Yeah,
So,
I
and apologies,
absolutely.
like I can't see you, so I can only see me. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with my phone either.
Okay.
So
You
I,
can't see me at all, can you not? Oh, at least I can
I
see
can't.
you.
So if you do hold up anything, or you'll have to also describe it to me because I
All
can't
right.
see.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. There's obviously gremlins in the whole Instagram tonight. But I think that's what connects us really, Daniel, because I suppose you've worked on some of the brands that we would stock at Mars Pharmacy. So when we first met, actually, you did my training in Revive. So you're working for Revive as a formulator, and that's where we first met. And I know that you've worked with other brands since that as well,
Sisterly
particularly
later.
Sisterly, yeah,
Yeah.
most recently, and we met again on that. But I think every time we meet, we talk about the same thing, which is inflammation, because I always say that as well. Like, actually, the core problem is actually inflammation, and inflammation causes all these disease states in our body. And if we can just get back to the root cause instead of trying to treat the actual symptom, then like you can have actually radical changes in your body, whatever, however that inflammation manifests in our body. And I think sometimes people think inflammation is, a swollen, ankle or a knee or a pulled muscle or whatever, and they don't really realize what systemic inflammation, I suppose, is all about, and how that is linked to, whether it be cardiovascular problems or whether it be, mental health problems even, or, how it manifests in our body. Do you want to just talk, just leaving a little bit about inflammation in general and what you've learned? Obviously, you've done a PhD in this. So, like if you were to summarize it in a few sentences, what would you say?
Well, to summarize in a few sentences, I'll try to keep it very compact, but I think you set the stage perfectly. Is when we think of inflammation, we think of acute inflammation, which is, we twist that ankle, it's swollen, it's red. The difference between that is if these inflammatory signals persist, they go on for a long period of time, this becomes chronic
Yeah.
inflammation. Now, acute inflammation, when we twist our ankle, that's very beneficial. That's our body doing what it wants to do and what it needs to do. It's swelling and it's red because it's increasing blood supply, it's increasing oxygen, nutrient supply, white blood cells. But you can imagine if that goes on for long periods of time within our body, and it's not just a short-term recovery acute mechanism, and it becomes systemic and chronic, then it can become very, very damaging because our body starts to become resistant and dampen down to those signals. So you get less signal responses, and you start to get tissue damage and tissue repair because the body is constantly trying to repair itself and it's not doing it properly, and it's reducing in its ability to do so. If you can kind of imagine, like our white blood cells in our immune system, like firefighters. We twist an ankle, it's like a fire, they go put it out. Now imagine your body is, a whole bunch of cities and there's fires everywhere. Well, the firefighters become exhausted, they become run down, and now they're not doing their job properly, and the whole city is burning.
Okay.
That's the kind of best, synopsis I can kind of give between the difference of inflammation acutely and systemic. It's very important, but we just can't have it go chronically in our body.
Go on long term. Okay. That's a really good actually analogy of it actually. Okay, so if I was to say to you then, you know, when you bring it back to stress, and how the link between inflammation and stress, what do you think are the main internal and external factors that can contribute to stress? Because we no matter who I speak to, I think we're living in a heightened world of stress, and there's so many external things that are completely outside of our control globally, even, that causes huge stress in people, and you feel sometimes out of control, and that you can even contribute to how the stress that you're feeling. But in terms of external and internal factors, what are the main things, the main drivers of stress that you're aware of, I suppose, that you have studied?
Absolutely, and our physiology is still adjusting. I don't think people appreciate how much longer we are living that it wasn't that long ago that, if you had a lifespan into your 30s and 40s, that you were doing pretty good. Our lives are extended, and our lives are infinitely more complicated than the times when we were hunters and gatherers. So we have all these other factors, and our bodies and our physiology and our genetics are all still trying to adjust to that. So when we think of external factors of stress, it can be things, I think, that as humans come very quickly to our brain, which is, traumatic experiences. If we have deaths or, a job loss or something like this, that is absolutely increasing our stress. It's increasing our cortisol levels, our stress hormones, which is having an impact on our physiology and our bodies inside. But kind of like a double-edged sword, it's also working internally, and we also have internal stress factors. Some of the biggest ones that can drive internal stress and internal inflammation are allergenic exposure, toxic exposure, especially, if you're a smoker or something. But it can also just be natural metabolism. Our natural metabolism, if we don't fuel our body properly and give the right resources, particularly things like antioxidants, metabolism can be a source of inflammation, and how that manifests is this thing called oxidative stress. So you can actually have this mechanism in your body, oxidative stress, which is actually essentially driving that internal stress and inflammation. And if that's also kind of, compiled with external factors, you can imagine, a very huge amount of stress on the system.
Okay. So we've got internal things that maybe we're not even aware of that's going on, I guess, when it comes to our metabolism. How would we know, Daniel? Like, how would we know? What signs would we see if it was more internal stress than external? How would you recognize that in your body?
So internal stress can manifest itself in a number of ways. Everything from skin conditions, IBS, fatigue, are all symptoms of inflammation and internal stress factors. Just to kind of quickly, one of the most, I think, common things that people think about when they think of manifestations of inflammation and what can go wrong in our metabolism is essentially diabetes. And just by living your life, and you're intaking food and you're expending energy, you are basically creating free radicals through metabolism. So your body goes to break up food and turn it into energy. And in that process, which is metabolism, you can create these kind of shrapnels of that food that you're turning into energy. And these free radicals are massive drivers. They're basically the biggest driver of inflammation in the body. And these can start taking its toll by reducing signals that the body can uptake and start kind of damaging tissue. So there's both internal and external factors that are really driving at it.
Okay, and that's what antioxidants do, isn't it? They kind of neutralize these free radicals, kind of mop them up, so it takes away those electronic charges from them so that they can't cause damage. Am I right in saying?
Exactly.
This has all come back to me now from a lecture many
Yeah,
years ago, and I remember the lecturer actually showing like the little extra electron around the atom and how basically antioxidants just neutralize that, kind of zap it. Am I right in saying that? Am I on the right track at all here, Daniel?
I used to describe them like magnets. Antioxidants are amazing. They're like magnets that scoop up all the bad particles you don't want in your body. So when your body's going to make energy through metabolism, and you unfortunately get this shrapnel, these free radicals, and basically what they are is they're missing a piece of themselves. And to make themselves full, they will take a part of us, a part of our genes, a part of our proteins, and that can damage our tissues. So what antioxidants do are these amazing protective molecules that come in like magnets and scoop them all up and clear them out of our body. So they're really, really important, especially if you have high metabolism.
Okay, that's a great way of putting it. Okay, right. Okay, I was thinking of more little like Pac-Man collecting these little extra ions around the place, but actually
That
a
too as
really good
well.
way. That's a really good way. Okay, right. So then, in terms of I suppose stress and I suppose all these extra electrons or floating around the body. When it comes to like I suppose cellular damage. What kind of things can they cause? And if you're saying it can damage our DNA or it can damage our proteins or whatever, how does that, what happens then as a result? Is it dependent on what tissue it attacks, Daniel, then, that it translates
Yeah.
into a particular disease? Or explain that, explain the link then in terms of internal damage to different organs.
So it can damage everything. It can damage our cartilage in our joints, and it can drive osteoarthritis when you start getting breakdown and destruction of your important joint tissues. It can attack our cardiovascular system on our blood vessels and cause hardening and hypertension, which can increase prevalence to cardiovascular diseases.
Okay.
It can attack basically every tissue on our body, and part of that effect in that attack and reducing the ability for your body to respond to signals is the response to insulin, which actually drives diabetes. So that's why metabolism is so kind of tied to diabetes, is because if your metabolism goes wrong and you have high inflammation, your body is becoming dull to the dampened to the signals of important signals of things like insulin, and can't respond to anymore. That's when you start getting metabolic dysfunction that can lead to diabetes, and that is hugely driven by inflammation.
Okay, okay, okay. And then in terms of mental health, Daniel, in terms of inflammation within, I suppose, the tissues in our brain, um, I guess there's a massive link. I've been reading a lot about this recently, actually, between inflammation in the brain and anxiety, depression, even ADHD now. That's what brought me into this kind of rabbit hole that I've gone down now. Um, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you really hit on it. And I would even throw the third part, the heart, the brain, and the gut link. And these three systems are so intrinsically tied and dependent on reliant one another. And we see a lot of comorbidities where depression and anxiety can lead to, again, hypertension in the cardiovascular system, which can lead to cognitive decline, and dysregulation in our gut microbiome can also drive inflammation and can have these psychological effects as well as cardiovascular effects. So really thinking about our heart being linked to our brain and to our gut is a more comprehensive and accurate depiction of what is actually really important in our body and what is driving all the other systems.
Okay, okay. Well, listen, I talk a lot about gut. I'm sure you see me chatting away. And actually, I was in London last Friday, I think, and I was talking to a researcher and developer. We haven't released any of the little videos and everything, so I did lots of interviews with him about what's happening in the world of the microbiome now and the gut-brain axis and this link. And he talked a lot actually about just, as you say, dysbiosis whenever the microbiome's out of sync, and that massive link now to mental health, and because of the inflammation, because inflammatory, I suppose, molecules and endotoxins are escaping the gut, traveling that vagus nerve, just traveling your circulation, never mind even the vagus nerve, and causing this inflammation in the brain. So the link between gut health and mental health is absolutely critical. So, but it's interesting that you say he didn't talk now clearly about the heart, but the link even between inflammation going on in your gut is linked to your cardiovascular as well, because it's basically all linked. All these systems are linked. We can't look at one system
Exactly.
independently. That's key, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Whereas I think medicine has been set up very, it's either cardiovascular, it's, psychiatry, it's, gastroenterology or dermatology when it comes to the skin. But actually, we should be looking at the entire body as one
Yep.
big system, and the connections between all of those. Would you
I
agree
look
with
at
that?
it like a web, kind of like a spider web. Like they all are connected, and if you drop something on any point of that web and you pull one of those systems down, it pulls everything else down. I mean, I would speak about this all the time, especially because inflammation and the immune system and metabolism is so important to me. Even one of the things I talk a lot about is skeletal and bone health, and people always, often disconnect, I think the skeletal system more than anything in the entire body. They might think of how important our cardiovascular system is to our endocrine system, but something in our skeletons, it's not just our scaffolding, it's within all of our bones that our immune cells are made, and our immune system is basically ran, as well as our fat tissue. So every system in our body is so important, and if anyone is really in deficiency or suffering, it has a knock-on effect on all the other systems.
Okay, so we really need to be viewing the entirety, and how one thing is linked to the other. So, but that gives good hope to me, Daniel, because like even when I was talking to this guy, Simon was his name, he was saying, you know, even by correcting the microbiome and that dysbiosis and reducing that inflammation in the gut and sealing up the gut wall, how then that has a positive benefit not only in the gut, but actually in terms of your mental health, and in terms, he talked a lot about skin health. He actually talked about inflammation even in joints and so on and so forth as well. But you know, in fixing one thing, you see the, I suppose, the domino effect elsewhere in the body as well. So it goes the reverse as well. Even though it can be a very negative thing, it can be a very positive thing if you actually start addressing taking down the inflammation, which is the core of the problem. Yeah. Am
Exactly.
I right?
I mean, if you actually start addressing inflammation, you know, bringing in anti-inflammatory and anti-stress aspects externally and internally into your life, it really does have a profound effect on all of the systems in our body and overall health and well-being. Everything
Okay.
from energy to recovery to immune system strength, everything just kind of starts functioning
Excellent.
more effectively.
Okay. Okay. Well then, come here. Tell me. So, what are some of the ways then that we can reduce stress and lower inflammation in our body then?
So yeah, I
This is
mean,
the
some of
magic
the
question, Daniel.
exactly. So now that we know the problem, how can we make some
Yeah.
improvements? And we absolutely can, you know, both externally and internally. We start with some of the core, most fundamental things, a well-balanced diet. This is absolutely crucial. This is key. This, I think, is where a lot of it all begins, you know, trying to incorporate more anti-inflammatory foods into our diet, by sleeping better, definitely improving sleep, by exercising, physical activity. All of these, especially these three things, are really, really important to make sure that we are not undervaluing in our lives that have really important effects on our health. And other things that we could do, a big thing, particularly if stress, anxiety, and reduced sleep is an issue, then I would definitely try to recommend reducing some of that caffeine intake, the effects that it has on cortisol and the effects on GABA that, you know, really kind of driving, you know, can be exacerbating, especially some of these aspects of stress if we're already experiencing them. And then, of course, looking to supplementation, which is a really effective way to fill in those gaps to make sure that you're not suffering from any nutrient deficiencies, that, you know, having a well-balanced diet and being active and sleeping well are all extremely important. But, you know, as well as we can try to focus on them, it's still really difficult to be making sure that we're getting everything that we need in the proper forms, in the right, you know, amounts. So supplementation can be definitely an added effective strategy in trying to improve that as well.
Okay. Okay. Can I just go back to what you said about the diet and, you know, what we eat and an anti-inflammatory diet? We hear this all the time, like, Daniel, a Mediterranean style diet, yeah,
Mm.
is well known to be anti-inflammatory. What would be on your plate now if you're talking about having an anti-inflammatory, whether it be a lunch or a dinner? What would, talk me through what that looks like, just to spell it out properly?
So one of the best things that, you know, we can incorporate more as a whole food into our diet, especially like on a weekly schedule, is more fish. We absolutely do not eat enough
Right.
fish, healthy fatty fish. Make sure that we're getting our omega-3 intake. That's really important. That has been shown to definitely promote anti-inflammatory effects. There's a lot of other things that we can incorporate, everything from ginger and turmeric,
Right.
yeah, cayenne spices. There's a number of things we can also incorporate into our diet to help bring anti-inflammatory effects, particularly that curcumin and ginger are really great
Good one.
ones.
Okay. And obviously, you can either put these in through the foods that you eat, but you can also use them in terms of supplements. And if you were talking about, you know, supplementation versus, you know, going off and getting loads of turmeric roots, say, and trying to put that into, you know, whether it be curries or whatever, you know, what's the difference in doing that? You know, is supplementation, I suppose, getting that ingredient in a much higher dose, or is it better to try and is it better to do both, or is it better to just go diet alone? Like, what's your view on all of that?
It's best to do both. I mean, you know, especially nutrients like this and on a whole food level, you know, you're not worried about getting too much unless you're eating like, having the same thing every single evening. And that's something we not recommend either.
Yeah.
Diversity in your diet, diversity in your food is really great. It's really important. I'm always talking about eating a rainbow, even diversifying, the kind of colors and textures and types of foods to make sure you're getting that full nutrient spectrum. But I think that the best strategy is really to do both if you can. Supplementation is additionally, helpful because not a lot of people have diverse diets or have those ability to get the adequate amounts on a weekly basis, especially because we have to be so active and time is always of the essence. So if you can do both, that's always the best strategy, but supplementation is there to help as well.
Okay, and then so like you're dead right about the fish bit, right? When I look at how many times we cook fish in even our house, and there would be two people in the house who, myself and Cassie, eat a lot of fish, oily fish, especially salmon. But then the boys would much prefer meat or whatever, and they wouldn't eat a hell of a lot of fish at all, actually. So even though we're in an island, I guess, yeah, you would
Yeah.
think we'd eat a lot of fish in Ireland. I don't think that we're anywhere near, well, especially not like I was in Sardinia for the summer. My God, there was, to be honest with you, most restaurants were all fish, all fish. And that's in the blue zone, which is one of these countries that, everybody lives, well, not everybody, but like a lot of people live over 100. So you could really see it reflective actually in the menus in the restaurants, even how much fish was on. Like everybody eats fish all of the time.
Yeah.
It was actually hard pressed to get a restaurant that actually had a steak, to be honest, So
Yeah.
you could see, I suppose, how that lifestyle then. And what I really noticed actually there was the low incident of obesity. Oh my God. It was actually probably 1 in 10 people were overweight, whereas, it would be a very different picture if you were on, say a beach in Ireland versus the beach there. It was quite stark actually. So, but I can see actually why, because of the way that they eat. So if we
Exactly.
don't like,
And you can take that reverse cycle and you can think about, okay, they're eating a lot of fish, they're eating a lot of omegas, they're getting a lot of anti-inflammatory nutrients, a lot of healthy anti-inflammatory oils into the system, and that is having a positive effect on their metabolism, which is keeping them healthy. They probably have great joints, great skin. Like there is this knock-on effect when you start, addressing inflammation, trying to get to that core of that issue, and then you see all the beautiful effects it has on the body as well.
yeah, that's interesting that you should say that now. Okay, and for people who don't like fish, like I'm just thinking of my son, or some people just don't like it at all. What should we be looking for in a good fish oil supplement? I know.
Yeah, so we talked about this last time. I mean, good quality fish oils, something clean. If it has astaxanthin in it, that's great. That's an amazing antioxidant that supports it as well. But you want to look for high DHA, EPA levels, a good ratio between the two, but especially high DHA if possible.
Okay, and that's particularly important when you're taking fish oil, say for memory or cognitive impairment, because am I right in saying about 40% of our brain is actually made up of DHA?
Exactly. And that is something that I particularly recommend for students if they're suffering from
Uh-huh.
stress and suffering from exams, because it has a dual effect. The omegas are helping to reduce stress and cortisol, but also DHA is so, so important to the brain. Now, DHA is kind of more structurally, it's very much involved in the formation of these synapses, which are important for memory, cognitive development, cognitive function.
Yeah.
And EPA has a great physiological effect in the brain, so it's great, much more effective, and helps to reducing stress and improving mood and focus.
Okay, so we need both
We need
DHA and
both,
EPA,
and
and
exactly.
in a high concentration. So I'll show you which ones would we take now, because people are going to be asking me definitely on the old fish oils. So there's a brand called Manami. I don't know if you know this brand, but the platinum one in that, or there's somebody else in the house who takes the original one in that. So I just take the platinum because I just go hardcore everything. And then the kids do this one. It's just a smaller dose, I guess. It's a capsule as well. But there is liquid ones as well, and Cassie would sometimes take that because Tutti Frutti, she takes a liquid, she can't really swallow capsules. So just if anybody's looking for capsules, liquid, Manami, Eskimo 3, actually Revive themselves have launched a new fish oil recently. Those are kind of the brands, like a good high quality brand. What's the difference between a high quality brand, Daniel, and then you see something maybe on the shelf that could be, I don't know, $9.99 versus $13.99? What's the difference between these?
It depends. I mean, it's not always the substance. I mean, the price isn't always indicative.
Yeah.
My best recommendation, especially, if you're in different areas, is talk to the people in the shops, talk to the pharmacists, talk to the people in the health food counters. What are the really high quality brands in your area? Again, like I always really promote label comparison. I always talk to my friends about doing this thing. I was like, if you're not really sure what to do this exercise, which is go in, grab something, and then start comparing it to other things. And whatever, wins after a few comparisons, okay, well, this one has higher DHA. Okay, this one actually does have, supporting, antioxidants as well. This is the winner. You kind of label comparison
Okay.
is a huge thing, and I can't underestimate the value of that enough,
Okay.
or understate.
Okay, that's a good tip. Okay, so and then in terms of any other supplements in terms of reducing inflammation, so you said ginger, yeah, you said turmeric, um, the root in turmeric now, there is, am I right in saying that that's where, I suppose that's where the magic is, that's where the anti-inflammatory ingredients are, because sometimes we see a really high dose of a particular root, that could be, I don't know, contain so much of curcumin versus another. Can you explain just what we should be looking for whenever we're looking at, I suppose, a turmeric supplement?
So, I mean, turmeric doesn't really kind of absorb very well sometimes. It's very hygroscopic. So, a good tablet of a high dosage is probably one of the best things to look for. Um, again, you want to kind of like look at dosages. You're looking for the highest dosage you can pretty much get within the capsule form, I would recommend.
Okay, or even a liposomal delivery, even better again, is
If you can
that?
get liposomal microencapsulated, that would be even the best option.
That would be the best option. Okay, great. And then, so you mentioned ginger. I don't know if any ginger supplements, Daniel. I don't know. Like, is there any ginger supplements you use?
Ashwagandha is a great one as well for stress and helping to reduce cortisol levels. It actually helps to block the adenocorticotropic hormone, which helps to promote cortisol levels. So ashwagandha is another one I would recommend
Oh,
for
ashwagandha,
stress.
I have that. I have that because I had been taking the sachets in this now, in this brand, Zuki, but now I have been taking these capsule ones. So this is liposomal. So explain how ashwagandha works, actually.
So ashwagandha is really great because it kind of does, it has a dual effect. In one respect, it helps to kind of block one particular hormone, this ACT, this adenocortisol tropic hormone, which promotes the release of cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So it helps reduce stress while also helping to release GABA, which is an anti-stress hormone, which helps us to kind of calm and relax. It also has great anti-inflammatory effects as well, so it helps to reduce inflammation through the body.
Yeah, because a lot of people even take ashwagandha, people who work out a lot, don't they? And it can really help
Recovery.
with recovery, exactly, post-recovery, and it improves your VO2 max as well levels. And I know of people who take it even for libido as well. So it seems to help with the production of testosterone in men. And I'm not too sure why it works for libido in women now, but people say that there's definitely clinical studies done on ashwagandha for sex drive as well. So that for taking down inflammation, for reducing stress, and for sleep as well, for helping relax. That's probably because of the GABA
Exactly.
treatments as well. So ashwagandha is a good one. Now, am I right in saying that anybody who has hypothyroidism should be careful with ashwagandha? Just to consult with your doctor, just to make sure, or if you're getting thyroid tests done, to stop the ashwagandha a couple of weeks before you go and get your thyroid tests done, because sometimes it can interfere, not always, but sometimes it can interfere. So just always check if you've got any thyroid issues, that you check with your doctor first before starting ashwagandha. I would just say that. Is there anybody else that can't take ashwagandha in your opinion, Daniel?
No, just the particularly, yeah,
Around
thyroid cases.
thyroid. Yeah,
Yeah.
thyroid. Okay. So talk to me about, if you're feeling a bit mentally stressed, can that make your body be stressed as well, Daniel?
Absolutely. I mean, the external factors which, in our lives, which can be causing mental stress, that absolutely has an effect on our body, on our systems. you know, one of the main things you can do is increasing cortisol levels, increasing stress hormone levels. This can, if it goes on chronically and, you know, again, too much, a little bit of stress is natural,
Yeah.
right? Like we have a flight or fight system built into our body, but it is that chronic stress which can start having effects by increasing inflammation in our body and start, you know, really kind of start noticing symptoms again, kind of manifestations of stress. It could be anything from skin conditions to fatigue, heightened allergies, IBS can be manifestations that start from mental, psychological things which are happening in our lives.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And can stress be genetic?
Stress can be genetic. I mean, genes are very complicated, but we have seen even like in kind of groups of like the FOS and ARC genes that are our genes which are related to stress. One of the really interesting things we're seeing in research in epigenetics is that one, that we can influence these genes, that we can actually reduce, you know, them over time and reduce their effect on our stress levels, but also that, you know, we're seeing the kind of effects of them being passed down from generation to generation and how that kind of stress can be affected through offspring as well. So it can be genetic, but it can also be highly influenced both by what we do in our lives, external factors, and internally what we're doing within inside our
Within
bodies.
inside our bodies. Okay. Okay. And I often say, you know, what you eat as well, like even super processed foods, ultra processed foods, Daniel. I actually did a podcast with Image and we were talking about this during the week. Just all those preservatives, all those emulsifiers and stabilizers and all the things that's put into our foods to keep them, I don't know, looking as if they're fresh
Yeah,
after, I don't know, a week sitting on, you know, where it looks like you've just bought it. Anything that is there as a preservative, clearly they are not natural products, and our body recognizes them, I suppose, as a foreign body and has this inflammatory response to them. And as a result of that, that is a huge, huge contributing factor to inflammation in our body. Am I right in saying that? Or, you know, what's your thoughts on ultra processed foods?
yeah, it really is. I mean, you know, high levels of, you know, sugar intake all the time, that's, you know, driving inflammation. Fatty over processed foods produce more pro-inflammatory fatty acids within our bodies, which drive inflammation again. So absolutely, I mean, we can actually affect and modulate so much by just changes within our diet, by taking out some inflammatory foods and incorporating some anti-inflammatory foods.
Okay. So, like some of this, a lot of it is actually within our control. I know things externally, and we go through lots of stress, but you know, events that can cause a huge amount of stress. But actually, what we consume, what we eat, and like you said earlier, even reducing our amount of caffeine, getting a better night's sleep, all of these things, a lot is within our control as well, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if there was a few lifestyle things that you would say, to really, you know, that you would recommend, say one, two, three, what would they be to reduce stress?
So just on the caffeine, now I know I will, for a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people all the time that, you know, even the reducing caffeine is a difficult thing. So one kind of small step that I would recommend in that is just try to stay off of caffeine within the first hour that you wake up, right? Because within that first hour when you wake up, you have a natural mechanism that your body is trying to wake up, which actually increases, well, actually is correlated with the release of cortisol. But what happens is when we're take caffeine as soon as we wake up, it actually blocks that cortisol increase, which comes later and starts dysregulating all our kind of energy. That's why we have the crashes, and that's why we have the increased stress from that elevated cortisol when it can't come out and we're waking up. So one small thing, you know, I'm not trying to kind of like, you know, stay away from caffeine completely, but if we can make one small step, it would be to not have it within the first hour.
Wow.
Another really important thing is sleep and recovery. I'm always going about the circadian cycle, our clock proteins in our body and how they're tied to our inflammation recovery, to our immune system recovery. So getting proper sleep and a sleep routine is really, really important. Exercise, again, can't underestimate this. I mean, even doing exercise helps to promote anti-inflammatory activities. within our body and help to repair and recover and help dampen those inflammatory signals. So really just, kind of small things that we can even try to incorporate on some level can have a big effect.
Big effect. Okay. And then in terms of like the specific vitamins and supplements, if somebody said that they were going through a very stressful time, maybe it's a grief, or maybe it's something that's really happened, they've lost their job, or there's something major going on in their life, and it's not something that they can completely control. If there was, say, three supplements that would be top of mind for you, what would they be, Daniel?
For stress, I'd have to go with vitamin D. Really can't be forgotten. It's important. I know we talk about it in nearly everything that we talk about, but also vitamin D is involved in nearly every process of the body. But really, honestly, its effects in the brain. There's one of the most common receptors in the brain is for vitamin D. It helps to improve mood. It helps to reduce stress. It helps to reduce anxiety. And vitamin D deficiency can really elevate levels of stress and depression. So that's a really important one. I know it seems like a no-brainer, funny enough, but like it's something that I think is a really important cornerstone. Magnesium.
We do
Sorry.
have a lot of vitamin D deficiency here in Ireland, Daniel. I think we may have spoken about that on our last live, just that Tilda report that came out during COVID as well, when they were looking at vitamin D deficiency in relation to COVID. But like, it is very prevalent here in Ireland. I think it was 1 in 2 people over the age of 80, I'm going to say, was vitamin D deficient. And then, as we got younger, it was maybe 1 in 4 in my age, whereas it might have been 1 in 10, say, in an adolescent age. But it is a sunshine vitamin. We get it from exposure to the sun and also vitamin-rich foods. But it's quite difficult, I guess, to get the amount of vitamin D that we need from the foods that we eat, unless we eat a lot of oily fish, back to the oily fish again, and whatnot. So, and if you're not outside and you're not exposed to vitamin D, then really we should be supplementing. That's one of the vitamins that you could say that nearly everybody needs, really, from, I always say, Halloween to St. Paddy's Day, really, is a time when we all should be taking vitamin D. Would you agree with that? Or
I would absolutely agree with that. And, again, when we think about how important it is in nearly every system in the body and countless mechanisms, if you're in deficiency, it has an effect on everything. And when we need so much and we're not getting enough, it's not difficult to see how deficiency can happen. So it is one thing that I'm always trying to reaffirm how important it is.
Yeah, and you can. It's a very affordable supplement, isn't it? Like, I mean, you can get it in a capsule form.
Yes.
I actually only have the little spray ones. I have this little vitamin D spray up with me, but like Zuki do a liposomal vitamin D as well, and a nice flavor. Or you can get it in capsule. And I always say get it in an oil suspended, because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So make sure it's in an oil suspension. So Pharmanord would be a good brand, or there's loads of good brands, isn't there? But
Yeah.
just, and always, do you always recommend take it with food? I always say take it with food as well.
I do, yeah, especially because of the fat soluble. Yeah, it will help it be absorbed into the body.
Yeah, so that's vitamin D. Sorry, I stopped you in your tracks there. So then you were moving on to magnesium, my favorite supplement, because I think after vitamin D deficiency, I think that's the next big deficiency that we have. I really do. I really feel like we have a lot of magnesium deficiency, and I don't think people even realize that they're deficient in magnesium. But anyway, tell me about magnesium in relation to stress.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing as well, because I mean, one of the first drivers through metabolism through the body that can cause magnesium deficiency is drinking. And I'm like,
Okay.
how does a country, it's when you drink and you go to metabolize through your liver, and you're using all these metabolites, and you're using these trace minerals and stuff. Magnesium is one of the primary electrolytes which is depleted, and that's why people, like, oh, I've been drinking all weekend, I'm getting muscle cramps and pains. I'm like, yeah, because you're deficient in magnesium. Like, that's one of the first things that's going to happen. So it's very common, and I hear people telling me symptoms of it all the time, and you're right, it is one that people forget about all the time, but it's involved in so many processes in the body. It has one of the most, out of minerals, the most processes, biological processes through the entire body. It's involved in so many things, from bone health to brain health, everything. But it absolutely helps to reduce cortisol levels as well as improve sleep and improve sleep function and sleep quality. So a really great nutrient for stress, but honestly, it's a great nutrient for everything. I can't talk about magnesium
And
enough.
like there's all these different salts of magnesium, and people often get really confused about this, Daniel, because I can't remember many. Is there 11 salts? Am I right in saying 11? I'm not too sure how many in total, but anyway, all different salts, and they all,
I think there might
I suppose,
be more.
yeah,
Yeah.
each one of those salts has a different function in your body. Am I right? Now, some of them has maybe 2 or 3 functions, so it's not to say that they only have one function. But in terms of when it comes to stress and sleep, my favorite, and listen, maybe you have a different favorite, is magnesium biglycinate. Because it seems to have, well, the glycine molecule itself, the glycine part of that compound or whatever also has I suppose it's an amino acid, so it also has an effect in reducing stress and helping with sleep as well. So then if you've 2 particles of glycine attached to 1 particle of magnesium, then you have a double whammy, is well, even a triple whammy, because you have 2 molecules of the glycine. That's my favorite one. That's the one I get the best feedback on. That's the one I take myself. Sometimes I take 3 Prismag before I go to sleep. If I have like a lot on, it like lights out on an hour afterwards. Like that's how good magnesium biglycinate is. Sometimes I take the Zuki brand one. That those are 2 brands that I recommend: the Prismag one and the Zuki brand one. But what's your favorite for stress in particular, or stress and sleep, or do you have a favorite?
So I've worked with all of the magnesium brands. I mean, they do have differing properties, but when it comes to absorption, potency, stability, as well as efficacy in the system, and it's not too, because some of them can have kind of, lactative effects, I recommend biglycinates as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're aligned on that. But I do like that magnesium mag 365 as well, because that's magnesium citrate. That's citric acid and magnesium carbonate, isn't it? And then when you put the water in, then it converts into magnesium citrate. But some people do find that has a bit of a laxative effect. So just be careful with that one. Something like Luca takes that because he loves the taste of that.
It's amazing for
Exactly.
recovery. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. He'd take a spoonful of that after coming in from rugby or, out training or whatever. He loves it. Like he feels like the muscles, are just relaxed pretty much straight away.
Exactly.
So, but you got to be careful with this one, I think, because I would say start small and taper it up, so start at
Yeah.
half spoonful and see how you get on.
That's what I
And then
recommend. And just give your body a chance to adjust to it.
adjust to
Yeah.
it. Yeah, tease it up, and then like if you do have some loose stools, then you've kind of gone too far, so cut it back. So if that happens at 2 spoonfuls, then cut it back to a spoonful and a half. That's what I recommend. But they do a kids one as well. Daniel, would you recommend, because there was questions actually here from followers, 3 or 4 questions in particular around children for stress. Children just going back to school, trying to get into a routine, difficulty sleep at night, but anxious in the morning, getting back in, maybe new class, maybe new school, maybe going into college, maybe going into secondary school. So a lot of stress around just that change in children. And I often, well, me personally, I would go to magnesium first for children. But what do you recommend?
Magnesium, vitamin D, and omegas would be my 3 recommendations for kids.
Okay.
Really helping with everything they need, helping obviously to improve the mood, to improve sleep, improve recovery. I think that those 3 really would be great for combination for children.
Okay, so high quality fish oil that we talked about, magnesium for children, and I think the Mag 365 do a kids version. So that one, and vitamin D. So the right
And
vitamin D. Okay, and like there's loads again. That Better Use brand is good because it does like a infant one, then a junior, and then 1,000 I use, and then the screen one is a 3,000 I use. And what about coenzyme Q10, Daniel? Because I know that you love that ingredient. Talk to me about that. What role does that play in stress, or in terms of anti-inflammatory effects in our body?
So it's great because as we talked about that kind of metabolism driver, which can be one of the main drivers of inflammation, especially if you start running out of antioxidant supply.
Yeah.
Well, CoQ10 has great benefits in nearly every kind of aspect of that equation. CoQ10 both acts as an electron transporter in helping to generate that energy and metabolism, to help promote healthy metabolism and energy production, but it also doubles as one of the most powerful antioxidants to help scooping up those free radicals and getting them out of the body. So it works really, really importantly within our mitochondria, which is the energy of every cell in our body, to help both promote energy generation and also to help clear out those free radicals to help stop the development of inflammation. So especially those two things, is improving energy and reducing inflammation and improving antioxidant supply. CoQ10 is a great option.
Brilliant. Okay, and we can get CoQ10. Well, it's in that Revive Active that you'd help formulate, and so the green box is in that. You can also get it separately in a little capsule, like that's the Revive one. Ubiquinol it's called, the CoQ10. But you can get in lots of other brands as well. I think Solgar might do a brand in it, and Pharmanor do CoQ10 on its own as well. So again, maybe just look at the dose, the strength. What dosage would you recommend for an adult for our dose, for our age?
For CoQ10?
Yeah.
150 milligrams is good, up to 200 milligrams,
Okay.
depending on how active in your age.
Yeah.
That's kind of the best dosage you got.
150 to 200 milligrams. Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to ask you a couple of followers questions, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so number one was I'm struggling with stress. Struggling with sleep due to stress. Is there any products that you would recommend? So the two things are very linked, aren't they? Like if you're stressed, it's difficult to sleep. If you've difficult sleeping, the next day you can feel very stressed, can't you? Like the two things go hand in hand. So in terms
yeah.
of sleep, what do you recommend? So this person obviously is struggling with sleep and that feels that that's leading to stress.
So magnesium, another one,
Okay.
great, helping to promote GABA, helping to kind of bring that relaxation at night. For sleep, I would also probably recommend theanine, L-theanine.
L-theanine, okay.
Yeah, also helps promote GABA production to help create, calming, relaxation to promote healthy sleep function.
Okay. Okay, that's L-theanine is an amino acid, isn't it? It just crosses the blood-brain barrier and it helps this GABA. This GABA is like a neurotransmitter, isn't it? It just relaxes you.
Yes.
It produces these kind of relaxing waves, is it?
It's
In our brain.
for GABA aminobutyric acid, and it's basically a neurotransmitter that helps to slow down regions of the brain to create it. It puts you into the sleep of relaxation and to go to sleep.
Okay. Okay, great. So L-theanine, and that's in different products as well. You can sometimes actually get that included in some teas, like herbal teas. I've seen it in herbal teas as
Green
well. It's in
teas. It's in large concentrations in green teas,
green
especially.
teas. Exactly. It's not because it's extracted from green tea, isn't it? It's a green tea extract, whatever. But again,
Yes.
you've got to go for a good high quality one to get a good level of L-theanine from it. I remember being actually in Paris, and they had this little Japanese shop, right? And it was a Japanese tea shop. And you could go in and you could select your blend. It was really cool, actually. Great idea for somebody thinking about doing something different here in Dublin. And you could select your blend depending on how you were feeling, because some of them were much more geared towards stress and some more towards sleep. And they'd make up the blend, and you sat at a little long bench, and you there's a bit of a ritual to it, you know what I mean? And you made your tea and all of the rest, and you sat around, and there was people there just fast asleep, kind of sleeping upright, and it was just all green tea. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was quite hypnotic, so green tea, but it has to be a good high quality green tea is what I would say. Sometimes you can get things in the supermarket and there's very little of the active ingredients actually in it. So again, look at the ingredients, look at the form in what you've got as well. Okay, next one is, what about pregnancy and breastfeeding? I've got 2 or 3 questions from people who are pregnant and just not too sure what to take if they're feeling a bit stressed.
So, something like magnesium is safe to take. It's always best to kind of, discuss with your GP, but if you're looking for something to take, magnesium at about 450 milligrams, completely no issues at all.
Okay, yeah, okay. And our body needs magnesium, as you said, like I think it's involved in 300 different processes in our body. So it's not like you're taking in something that your body wouldn't be using anyway. So magnesium's safe to take. Okay, so should I take ashwagandha or magnesium to help reduce stress levels? So this is somebody wondering one or the other. Which of the two would you land towards, or you can take both, actually, work
You could take
both.
both. You
Yeah.
could take both. I would say if your stress was more related to sleep, then I would lean magnesium. If your stress was more related to just anxiety throughout the day and inflammation, then I would lean ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha. Okay, so if it's more related to sleep, go for a magnesium supplement. If it's more anxiety fueled by, or during the day,
Mhm.
ashwagandha more so. Okay, great, excellent. Um, Next one is how can I reduce the feelings of anxiety? Is there a specific vitamin that I can take? So this is around anxiety. What would you go for there?
Hmm. Anxiety, I mean, I think one of the main things when you look at research of what deficiencies are correlated with high levels of anxiety, it always comes back to vitamin D. I mean, a lot of things that we're talking about here tonight will be in great accommodation. But if you're honestly suffering from anxiety and you have high levels of stress, the first place to start, I would believe, is a vitamin D deficiency.
Okay, okay. And the only real way of actually knowing, is to get a blood test by your GP, isn't it, Daniel? Yeah. And I know
Mhm.
from speaking to my own GP, if you are deficient in vitamin D, because people often say, what dose do I go for? Um, and I know from speaking to her, she was saying to me, like, go for like the 3,000 I use even for a couple of months, kind of like front load it and then reduce down to 1,000 then thereafter. But it all depends, I suppose, on your lifestyle, what you're eating as well. Have you a lot of vitamin D rich foods in your diet? So it is very, I suppose, a very personalized thing in terms of dosage. But the only way of actually knowing how your levels are is getting your vitamin D levels tested
Mhm.
with your GP. But I still think that it's safe to recommend even vitamin D supplementation, even without doing that, as long as
Yeah.
you're staying within the recommended daily intake. Yeah,
Oh, I mean,
would you agree?
like vitamin D toxicity of getting too much, really should not be your concern, especially if you're not supplementing at all. It's way more likely that you could be a state of deficiency. I actually recommend a very similar thing, which I recommend a therapeutic dosage when you first start, taking, somewhere around 3,000 IU and then go to a maintenance dosage of 1,000 after that, after about, 2 weeks.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, then that's actually very similar to what she had said. Okay, talk to me about how can I spot signs of stress in my child?
Hmm. Signs of stress in the child. I mean, the kids are probably stressed in general, but I mean, they will exhibit a lot of the same superficial manifestations that stress can in adults. Everything from increased skin conditions, IBS, if they weight fluctuations, changes in sleep patterns, but also, their own kind of behavioral aspects. I mean, I know it's hard to kind of decipher this, and especially teenagers, but if, increased kind of mood swings and things like this can be signs of increased stress in their lives.
Okay, okay. And again, would you say, for teenagers or children in general, would your first line to be go to towards magnesium?
Magnesium, yep, magnesium and vitamin D right up there, as well as the omegas, those three,
These
but
three.
probably magnesium would be the top of the list. Yeah.
Okay, so magnesium, vitamin D, and a good quality fish oil is really what I've been getting from you tonight. So
Yeah.
Daniel,
Yeah.
ashwagandha if it's stressed during the day. Okay, okay, and then the last question here is, that's pregnancy. We asked about that. We asked about breastfeeding as well. And again, with breastfeeding, magnesium is fine with breastfeeding. Daniel,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a fish oil is fine as well with breastfeeding as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
vitamin D is fine with breastfeeding. In fact, when you're
Yes.
pregnant and you're breastfeeding, you're actually more likely to be deficient. So you should definitely be taking vitamin D.
Yes.
Um,
In
okay.
all those cases, yeah.
And then lastly, just about gut health, Daniel, you talked about the microbiome earlier in the live. Just talk to me a little bit about your views on how we can improve like our microbiome to reduce inflammation elsewhere in our body?
Right. So I mean, this is a big. I mean, we could have a whole other live about this, but dysregulation of the gut microbiome can be a huge driver of inflammation. And we see from studies, basic steps to kind of correct the microbiome through three levels, which is the prebiotics, the probiotics, and the postbiotics. By helping, particularly getting those probiotics in with sources of fiber, something like the chicory root or the inulin, are really great means of helping to correct that gut microbiome and to promote those anti-inflammatory effects. And looking particularly at, things sealing up like the gut-like lining can also have benefits as well.
Okay. So, and in terms of fiber, Daniel, I'm always talking about fiber as well. I actually always recommend this product. I'll show you. I actually got it from downstairs here, called Cauliflower. I don't know. Have you ever seen that? It's psyllium husks. Psyllium
Yeah,
husks. It's actually developed by an
psyllium
Irish
husk is
company.
the other kind of prebiotic that I'll
Yeah.
recommend as well.
Yeah, so there's, as you said, chicory root, inulin, and you see those in some different supplements, whatever. But just talk to me about what your view is on fiber and how deficient are we in taking fiber in this country?
I mean, we're hugely deficient. And I mean, it is the fuel that what the gut microbiome runs on. It is what is required to produce all the anti-inflammatory and healthy signals that our healthy gut bacteria are looking to produce. So, I mean, not having that as a source of fiber within our system, again, it's driving inflammation and it's having a negative effect on pretty much every system of the body. So that is one thing that we really need to be focusing on more as a cornerstone within our health.
Okay. And then I know probiotics. You talked about probiotics. I always talk about this product, Improve, because it's, it gets the bacteria to the large intestine, to the colon or whatever. So by doing that plus a fiber and also just making sure you have like a really healthy 30 plants a week. I don't know if that's kind of what that, and I'm only going by that because of the American Gut Project. But I don't know if there's any new evidence out since that, but I always say 30 different plants a week, whether that be, fruit or vegetable or nuts, seeds, legumes, lentils, herbs, spices. That diversity, you talked about diversity actually earlier,
Yep.
even the diversity, the rainbow. So that like diversity in your, I suppose, in the plant sources that you're actually eating will help many different species, of gut bacteria to grow and thrive as well. Would you,
Exactly.
yeah, would you agree with that? Or is there anything else, I suppose, in emerging evidence that you're seeing around the gut microbiome that we should be cognizant of?
Yeah, I mean, having that diverse kind of source of food to feed all the different kind of strains within our gut, that is absolutely important. I think, the helping to kind of reduce inflammation as a whole also has a positive effect on the gut microbiome. We do know things like stress and inflammation can be driving aspects of IBS as a symptom. So I think of looking at it holistically, just a good kind of foundation of eating right, varied diet, getting all your micronutrients, staying hydrated, but particularly within that gut microbiome, trying to incorporate anti-inflammatory foods that we talked about and helping to reduce inflammation, because that will in turn help the gut microbiome help to drive inflammation down as well.
Okay,
It's kind
yeah.
of cyclical.
It's all cyclical, isn't it? Yeah, because
Yes,
of
exactly.
course these little bacteria produce, all of these positive neurotransmitters and short chain fatty acids and everything that take the inflammation down. So if you feed them the
Yes,
prebiotics, the fibers and so on,
they feed
they'll
that.
grow, thrive. Yeah.
Yep.
And then they produce the anti-inflammatory effects to help reduce the inflammation. So everything's linked. Come here. I think that's the message of tonight. Everything is linked. Everything is
It
linked.
is.
But I think the core thing here is, and I think the key take-home message, certainly I'm getting from you anyway, Daniel, tonight, is that actually inflammation's at the core of all of this.
Yes. Yes.
In
Focus on the inflammation, understanding, how your body manifests inflammation and, what you might need to do within your own system and your own physiology to help just taking steps to bringing that down. Whether it's lifestyle changes, whether it's some of the supplements, even just great antioxidants, B complex, all of these things are anti-inflammatory, which can have a beneficial effect on our systems.
Okay, great. And then if I was to say the three main things, supplements that you have mentioned here tonight is magnesium. And particularly if it comes to stress or sleep, magnesium biglycinate. So that Prisma, I'll just show you the ones that we have in this house now, but other people might have different brands. So this Prisma brand, yeah, it used to be black, but it's now blue and green. Change that. Or this magnesium Zuki brand, and they do a capsule as well. So that's magnesium biglycinate. There's other magnesium supplements as well. We talked about this magnesium mag 365, which also is great for relaxing the muscles for sure. Or you can even use magnesium in a topical spray, can't you? Like it can be absorbed topically through the skin if you don't want to take something orally. You can get a gel, or you can get a rub, or you can put magnesium flakes in the bath even. Helps as well to, be
Particularly
absorbed
helpful for targeting to the
for the muscles.
muscles.
Yeah. So magnesium you mentioned, vitamin D, that's a clear winner here now tonight. And we're talking about 3,000 IUs if you're an adult initially for the kind of like a loading dose, and then maybe down to 1,000 over time.
Yeah.
And everybody can go on vitamin D. That's one sure thing. It's linked to everything in your body. And then fish oils, a high quality fish oil with a high dose of DHA, but a good blend of DHA and EPA. And if there's additional antioxidants in there, then great, that's brilliant. And then the last thing is the gut microbiome. Do all you can to grow those little bacteria so they can flourish and grow to take down inflammation. Am I right in saying, did I summarize that well for you?
That's a perfect summary. That's perfect. Take everything.
Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Honest to God, if people have any questions, what I'll do is I'll store this down. I'll tag you in it, or I'll add you as a collaborator. And if I can't answer
Yes.
any questions that might come in after this, if we send them your way, are you happy enough to help people? If I didn't even look to see if
Absolutely.
anybody was asking any questions on this, I've been very bold tonight. I'm so sorry if you asked any questions throughout the live. I'm sorry, if I haven't answered it. Send us a DM afterwards, or put it in underneath the grid, and we will come back to you. Back on my fish oils. Thanks, Una. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Pam. Thanks, Pam. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, back on the fish oils for sure. And yeah, there's a couple of good brands that we always talk about. But listen, if anybody has any further questions, honestly, leave them below the grid, or if you don't want to ask publicly, we completely get that. You can send us a DM, and I'll tag Daniel in if you have a specific question for Daniel. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will put this in the grid.
Thank you
Thanks, Daniel. Thank
so
you
much,
for your
Una.
time.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Appreciate it.
All
It's a pleasure as
right, thank
always.
you. Bye bye.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.